Shalom Akim, or should I say Shalom, which is the actual way to say it. In today's lesson, I want to cover this topic on the strangers, in the Old Testament. Elder Gabar did a series called Add Thou Not, Take Not Thou Away. And this is on Bible Truth Perspective. This is part 3. And, here's the website, in case you brothers want to go to it. And basically what he touched on was, that these Zionists and these different groups that were out there took the Apocrypha and took certain words, key words out of the scriptures and changed it to fit themselves into the agenda. Now the main guys that did it were these guys called the Masoretes. Now the Masoretes, they were around the time of the 8th century AD. From the 8th century AD to about 10th century AD, that's when they took on the task of changing the Bible. They translated it, but then some of the stuff they kept on point because they didn't have to change it, but some of the stuff that was against them, they changed to fit themselves in there, because by that time they already knew that they weren't Israelites. When the Khazars converted to so-called, to the so-called laws of our laws, they knew that they weren't the people of the Most High. So what they did was they changed certain key points in the scriptures to fit themselves in it. All right. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hit a couple of the words for stranger, in the Old Testament, and then we're gonna go through some scriptures to show you what is meant. What is the difference between an actual stranger, which is a heathen of another nation, and what is the difference between an Israelite foreigner that's considered to be a stranger? All right. So let's get started. All right. This next, what you call it here, I titled it Stranger, Israelite, Foreigner. This is an actual Israelite foreigner. So whenever you see the word gar, the Hebrew word gar, by the way, that's this frame here. Whenever you see the Hebrew word gar, that means a sojourner. That means that's an Israelite foreigner. So here it says gar, which is a sojourner, a temporary inhabitant, a newcomer lacking inherited rights, of foreigners in Israel, though conceded rights. Now the word concede is to give somebody their rights, but give it to them grudgingly. Why? Because the Jews and the rest of Israel at that time, you had other Israelites that went off, they didn't really accept them back into this thing. That's why all the way up until the time of Yahushua with the Pharisees and the Sadducees and them, they really wasn't for bringing those Israelites back into the fold, because they considered them to be heathens. And there's plenty of scriptures to prove that. Like it tells you in the book of Matthew, the 18th chapter, if you try to correct a brother, he don't receive correction, and you bring him between 2 or 3 brothers, and then you bring him before the congregation, and he still refuses to hear the order, and the judgment, he's casted out as a heathen man. So he's considered to be a stranger, so they don't want nothing to do with that guy. Same thing with the Samaritans. The Samaritans, you had certain of those Samaritans that were actual Israelites, that were actual Jews, that went into that land because they were accused of breaking the laws. So the Jews in Jerusalem considered them strangers. Now, y'all guys are heathen, man. Get the hell out of here. They considered them apostates. So they wouldn't accept them in. That's why it said here, it says, of foreigners in Israel, though conceded rights. Why? Because if they were brought back, the right that was given back to them was grudgingly, like the parable of the prodigal son. The one son that stayed with the father had a problem with the other son that went away. He said, this guy spent his living on harlots. He wasted his inheritance, and you making a big ass party for this guy. Then what did the Lord say to him? He said, look, you are always with me. But this thy brother, he left and now he's come back. That's the conceded right, or that that right given to him grudgingly. Alright, so this is when you see this word means stranger, it means sojourner. It's an Israelite foreigner. Now the next word, stranger, is an actual heathen. The word here is nakar. Alright, now the word nakar means foreign, alien, foreigner, foreignness, that which is foreign, foreigners, foreign gods, alien, foreigner, foreign vanities. Now what you have to understand is when these things were translated into the Old English, there were certain words that King James that the men that were with King James were using, that they understood that, okay, that means the Israelite foreigners. That means, Israel. When we say Gentiles here, this is what it's meant, because at that time, the word Gentile did not mean the heathens and the other nations. You know, they knew what it meant. They knew that it meant of Israelite foreigner. You know, and then there were certain places where the word Gentile was used. When you read the context of the scripture, then you know, okay, this is the actual heathen of another nation. All right, so this is the word Nakar. These are the two main words we're going to be dealing with in this lesson, is Gar and Nakar. All right. Now there's a third one, stranger heathens, which is Zawar. Now this is another, whenever you see this word here, it's usually speaking about a heathen. It says to be strange, be a stranger, to become strange, another, strange, foreign, an enemy, to be estranged, to be a stranger, be one alienated. All right, that's what the scriptures say. The wicked are estranged from the womb. They come out speaking lies as soon as they be born. So this is just three examples of the word for stranger in the Hebrew. You know, there's others, but these are some of the main ones. So like I said, the main ones we're going to be dealing with is the word Nakar and the word Gar. Now the word Nakar, like I told you, that's an actual stranger, but the word Gar is talking about an Israelite foreigner. All right, now in this scripture here, Rachel and Leah were going to be considered to be strangers by their fathers because they left with Jacob, which was their right to do, but it wasn't done in the right in the right manner, so to speak. But even though Laban was doing wickedness to Jacob, Jacob had to, you know, make haste and move on. So this is what Rachel and Leah said to Jacob. It said, are we not counted of him strangers? For he hath sold us and hath quite devoured also our money. So now here the word strangers, when you look here, the word there is Nakar Yawath. Nakar Yawath is stranger, but plural, the plural sense. Because the word Nakar or Nakar Yah is the actual Hebrew word for a stranger. So the Wath at the end makes it plural feminine. All right? So they said they were to be considered strangers. So even among people that weren't Israelites, like Rachel and Leah, you know, they were even looked down on other strangers, you know. So there was a certain level of strangers that you had. You had strangers, you had Israelite foreigners, then you had actual heathens, but then you had super heathens. You know, like Esau, he would be considered like a super heathen, you know, for lack of better words. All right, now the next frame here is Jacob tells his household to put away strange gods. It says, then Jacob said unto his household and to all that were with him, put away the strange gods that are among you, and be clean and change your garments. Now when you read through the Hebrew here, the word here is al-haya ha-nakar. The word ha-nakar is the stranger. So the word, the word is alahaya, which the word alahaya is gods, and the word ha-nakar is the strangers. So that was like a bad, that was, you know, you didn't want to be called no stranger. That's why when the Pharisees and them got mad at the Lord, what did they say? They said, have we not said right well that you are that you are a Samaritan and you have a devil in you? Because back then, calling somebody a Samaritan was the equivalent of calling somebody a heathen. You know, even though those Samaritans that they were talking about were Israelites that had fallen away from the law, statutes, and commandments. So that was considered like a bad word. Now that's the same thing with this word. Those are the actual heathens. All right. We'll move to the next one. It says Joseph made himself strange. All right. Now you know the story about Joseph, and those of you that don't know, you should go back and read the story of Joseph with his brothers. Now this is Genesis 42:7. It says, and Joseph saw his brethren, and he knew them, but made himself strange unto them, and spake roughly unto them. And he said unto them, whence come ye? And they said, from the land of Canaan, to buy food. So you see here, the word Joseph made himself strange. Now when you look at the actual Hebrew word, is waya tha nakar. The word nakar, he made himself like if he didn't know him. He made himself like if he was an actual stranger, an actual heathen to them. You know, to let you know that there was times when Israel could have done that. You know, that word could have been used for Israel, and as in this case, but he did it to show himself strange against his brothers.